Greetings. This is Paul. I'm working on a new format here and trying to find my way through like all the technology and the podcast and the video thing. And I spend a lot of time thinking about this and how to improve it and doing stuff. And it's okay. I'm just working on some stuff, so I hope you'll be patient with me. And if you have comments or suggestions, I'm always open. So I had a background of audiovisual in Las Vegas where I did lots of things, but one of my most favorite was to be able to run PowerPoints for people that were presenting. And I thought, everybody has kind of their own style of doing these videos, and some use PowerPoint and most don't. And I know PowerPoints are kind of blasé in some areas because people have seen so many of them. But I'm going to try and do a hybrid thing where I can do something visual and colorful and then also present ideas. So I want to tell you a little bit about myself. I have this company that I started a 2-3 years back called Spiritual Solutions, based around the notion that I want to focus on spirituality. My belief is that there are spiritual solutions for every problem, and so I'm working on that. I feel like I am a creative, and I like to have fun. I actually make people laugh quite a bit. Hopefully that will happen here. And as a part of that, I listen to a lot of guys that are physicists, and they're all kind of important, and they're a physicist not just by itself, but they're a PhD. So I wanted to step up and do as close as I could to that, which is a life assist and a PH3, or probably a little bit higher. I go by the moniker of Paora because I have a dear friend I'm going to talk about later named John. His Tongan name is Sione, and he calls me Paora. And that to me is an honor. I lived much of my life in New Zealand, and he was a companion of mine. And I really love that man. And because he's been so supportive for all these years since we were together, I want to honor him by using the name that he calls me, and also to honor my history there in New Zealand. So Spiritual Solutions is a nonprofit, and I'm trying to grow it and develop it to something that will be really helpful, and I can use some help. So if anybody wants to jump in and volunteer, go for it. Today I want to talk about kindness. And I want to talk about people that have been kind to me as a way of kind of rehearsing and talking about these wonderful people that have been so great for me in my life. I want to talk about my dear friend and client at times, Tiffany. She and I got introduced, and I did some coaching with her, and we really turned her life around in a lot of ways. And she has become just such a wonderful, kind, loving, supportive, wonderful friend, and is very, very kind and enthusiastic supporter of me and what I do in my writing and what I'm doing here. So I want to honor her. As I mentioned, I had this amazing experience with this big Maori guy named John in Poirua, New Zealand. We were together for 6 months, and subsequent to that, we have remained great friends for over almost 40 years now. And he listens to me, he takes my writings, he supports me, he gives me comments. He helps me out so much just with my kind of mental state, my feelings about myself and what I'm doing. Because what I do is a little bit out there, But even though he's a good religious church guy, he's always supported me, even though my ideas are a little different. I told you I lived in New Zealand, and I was there almost 9 years. And being away that long was kind of weird because we hadn't really seen much of our friends or relatives. And coming back to America was like this big adventure that I had anticipated for probably every year that I had been there. And my grandma had this beautiful little condominium and called Three Fountains. And she took me in. I'm so grateful to her. I came back in May and cruised in from town. I drove back an old VW Bug from LA. And the heat was stuck on and I didn't know how to turn it off. So I drove this old clunky VW Bug all across the desert at about 190 or 100 degrees with the heat fully on. It was burning my feet the whole time. I had to keep changing my feet. Anyway, I finally rolled into town and got the VW Bug back to my companion's family. They were the Tanners. And then I had nothing. I just had nothing. But my grandma, her name was Florence. She took me in like this little stray and helped me get on my feet. She didn't never charge me rent. She fed me. She's a wonderful cook. She's so sweet and giving. And let me stay at her place for like 3 or 4 months. I got a job digging sprinklers and made a little money and kind of got ready for school and made this huge transition to university in America. And she just let me stay there. And I thought that was so sweet. And later on, I moved back into my parents' house in the basement because we were renting the top and was able to do a year of university at the University of Utah. She was just so sweet. I can't tell you how kind she was to me. And it really helped me. Of course, I need to talk about my mom and dad. My dad was the hardest working guy you ever want to meet. He was smart and adventurous. He was aggressive at times. He was funny at times. And my mom was so sweet and giving and loving and remained that way throughout her whole life. I miss both of them. My dad was such a great caregiver, and I could go to him for almost everything. I couldn't go to him about religious stuff because he had a set view of how things should be and how I was supposed to live. But most of the rest of stuff, we talked about stuff. And my mom was so sweet, so giving. I love her. I'm pretty sure that they're having a good time where they are. There's another couple that I want to mention because they've been so influential. We lived in a little town called Templeview, New Zealand, and we lived in these homes that were made by the labor missionaries. And they made their own bricks and everything, and they were painted white. And we lived up on this one house because that was the only one that had enough room for 7 kids. And we stuffed ourselves in there. And just down the hill from us, there was a New Zealand couple. His name was John, and her name was Jackie. And they were so sweet, so nice, so friendly, so warm and inviting. Again, it was another experience where I felt completely kind of isolated and lost, and I'd just come back from my mission, and they contacted me immediately. John had a gas station that he had just bought and was working really hard with, and he offered a job to me, and here I was, had no skills, nothing. But I ended up pumping gas and wiping windshields for John at his beautiful little gas station down there near Dinsdale. And Jackie was always so nice and friendly and cool with me. She was just so great. They let me into their house. I was dating this woman. They let me kind of hang out there with her because she needed a place to stay. And it was kind of a real difficult time transition for me to come back. And yet they made me a place, made me feel comfortable, made me feel loved, and it was so great. I have another friend that I met. They were our neighbors. We had this home, and there's this big grassy area, and just across the grassy area was this apartment complex that they called the Nunnery because all the women that lived there were single. And one of the teachers at the school had a niece and was staying with her. And I met her, and we hit it off. We had this kind of fling thing going on, I guess, for a little bit. And then I left and didn't really have much contact with her until later on. But when I did contact with her, she was so nice and so kind. And I was doing a lot of writing, exploring my talents and my interests. And she was so kind to me, so supportive. And she helped me with business ideas. She helped me with my writing. She did evaluations for me. She lives in beautiful Australia. And she's just been a really great friend for me. I think it's important also to talk about couple others here that are important to me. I had a beautiful, wonderful woman that I married, and we spent 20 years together, and she was great. She was supportive and loving and kind, and still is that way to this day. And I remember after we got divorced, which was like a really, really sad day of my life and sad time, because I felt like I was reprobate and I was irresponsible for leaving the children or leaving her with the children. But she was really cool about it. One of her rules was that even though we were divorced, I could walk into the house and treat it as my own anytime. It kind of was my own, but I gave it to her. And that was just such a nice gesture. Like, I could just go in there and not feel odd, not feel weird. She wanted me to have good relationships with the children and to be connected with them and to have kind of an open door to access. So whenever I had some time, I could go there and get some time with the children and bond and do whatever we did together. And I appreciate her. I love her, and she's really been great. My children are another that I want to talk about here because they're really great. They're really great. I have 6 children. They're all living good lives and doing well. I was kind of an absentee father because not long after the divorce, I moved to Las Vegas. And so I didn't have as much time with them as I could have if I had stayed in that town. But the children worked with me. You know, they tried to love me and care for me, and I tried to do the same with them. And it was a tough gig for me. I made hundreds of trips between Vegas and Salt Lake area and gave them half of everything I earned and my time that I could. And even today, I try to keep in touch with them. But you know, they had a kind of a tough gig with that divorce, and I feel partially responsible for that. And I still have some guilt, as you can probably see. But my children have been kind to me, and they're loving, and they're trying to work with me. I've got good connections with most of them. And I'm very, very grateful for each one of them and for them putting up with my nonsense and also trying to keep the relationships active and alive and working well. They've all mostly they've got spouses now and families, and so they're growing up and they're adults, but I want to be a part of their lives and to be a positive influence. So anyway, that's my stance. I feel like being kind is very, very important, and I try to do that in my own life. But I wanted to create kind of a memoriam for all the people that have been kind in my life. I wanted to represent and recognize how kind these different people, now there's hundreds of others that have been kind to me as well, but these are the ones that have kind of hung in with me after I've made some changes in my life. And they've been there for me and continue to be there for me. And I can't say enough about how grateful I am for each one of them and all the others that have been in my life that have touched me and helped me and been with me as much as they could. So that's my tribute today, my tribute to my loving family and friends. And I thank you for listening. And I'm going to talk some more about what I consider to be the greatest qualities in life, besides kindness. And I'm looking forward to hearing from you and your comments and also sharing the best ideas I can be and my encouragement for you to be kind. Thank you.